So we know the next season of Kill Team will be on a spacehulk. So, what team should we see face each other in this setting? We already know the first two teams will be the Crew and the Imperial Marines, but there are some other teams we should absolutely see during this season. So I know these first two are pretty obvious, but it's going to be a callback to the classic spacehulk, and that's going to be Genestealers against Terminators. On the Xeno side, Tyranids still haven't got an update from their compendium, and this would be an awesome chance to do that. Well, I do think the Tyranids have some of the more fleshed out compendium rules because they can run anything from a horde of Johnson Genestealers to a more elite all-warrior team. They still need an update at some point. If this is just going to be a Genestealer focused team, there are a few ways they could implement this. For one, for their leader, they could use the Broodlord, so they could have one more big elite unit on the battlefield. But besides that different unit, one thing I think would be really cool to do, and this is carried over from their 40k rules, is add in an infestation node into Kill Team. So this would basically be a token that the Genestealers can place on the battlefield. If the other team can get to it and destroy this token, then the swarm stops coming. But if they can defend it and keep the other team from getting to it, you have a never-ending swarm of Tyranids that will never stop. An unending swarm mechanic isn't something we've ever seen in Kill Team before, but I think it would be a cool mechanic, and having a token like this would basically be another objective, and would add something really unique to this team that would kind of replicate how the Tyranids actually fight. So overall, that might be a balance nightmare to figure out how to get it to work, but if they could get it to work in a balanced way, I think it'd be a really cool way to make Tyranids really unique. On the other side of this battle, we have the Terminators. So this is a hard one to actually implement, to be honest. Just because they are so elite. I've been helping one of my friends try to homebrew this, and it is pretty tricky. So if you make it where it's basically Space Marines, but they're tankier, really good in melee, and there's almost no models on the field, congrats, you've basically created Custodes. So we're not done messing with our homebrew version of this, but basically what we're leaning towards is you have your Terminators, but they're slower than Custodes, but they have a Librarian that can use Psyker powers to give them different buffs. So because they have their slower movement, think of it kind of like combat stats of Custodians, the pacing of Death Guard where they're slower, but the flexibility because the Psyker power is like Grey Knight, so it's kind of missing all those teams together. That's kind of what we've ended up with. I don't think a Librarian's how they would actually do Terminators if they released it. It's just what we're doing, and it's a pretty fun way to play it. Because they're elite, I don't think they would be meta-breaking if they got released. Maybe they would do something with having an extra save dice. I'm not sure what they would do, but as long as it was decently balanced, I think having Terminators would be really fun, and would be a cool shout-out to the classic spacehulk. This next matchup are two teams that we know are coming out in 40k, but don't actually have their rules or their models released yet, and that will be World Eaters and Squats. We know these teams are getting models and full lineups made anyways, and they're both teams that I think you could see on a spacehulk. We know the World Eaters will use them because they just want to slaughter, they don't care where they're going. They'll hitch a ride and then just crash on a planet at some point. And for the Elites of Volton, they could want to go on one for ancient technology, or go on there for some kind of minerals or supplies. They're both teams that could meet up, so I think the World Eater teams would be the Khorne Berserkers. I think it would play kind of similar to how the Legionaries do. Obviously, you're not picking a Chaos God because they're all Khorne. And I think instead of some of the Psyker stuff, they'd mostly be focused on charging in and melee. I'm not sure how this would play out, but I could see them having a lot of stuff like a strategic ploy, where you activate it and you get crazy melee fighting buffs, maybe a longer charge range. But when you do that, none of your models can be in conceal orders for the entire turning point, or even something where you can't parry, things where they just go into that rage and all they want to do is attack. We'll really have to see what their other models look like and what they're actually doing with them in 40k. We know they're getting new models. We know they're coming out to 40k. It's just kind of a matter if it lines up with Kill Team Into the Dark or not. And by the way, for this and Leads of Volton, I know the timing of these model releases and Kill Team Into the Dark might not line up. I'm honestly not very clear on how Big Hammer does their release schedule, like as far as when they've shown us the models and when they actually did release. I don't know, since they've showed us some previews, if that means they're coming out relatively soon, or if it could be over a year from now. So we'll just have to see. Maybe it will line up, maybe it won't. This isn't what I think is going to happen, it's what I think would be cool to happen. So just keep that in mind. Alright, for squats, we've seen their standard infantry preview. But what I really hope they do at Kill Team is let you run a range of running normal squat infantry models and having a pretty big number of models on the field, or running their SO armor for more elite choices and be able to mix and match that. So you can kind of run whatever style of team you want. We also have some cool chances to run other types of models here as well. We know we'll have their Ironkin, which are their AI, and they have engineers and medics. So that's a lot of different types of models and specializations we can have, even if they don't have Kill Team specific models. So there's a lot of variety. So even if we don't get a Kill Team rule set for this where we have like unique Kill Team models, I really hope we at least did a White Dwarf. I'm pretty sure we will. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, unless they're waiting to do a big Kill Team release down the line later. So Kill Team Into the Dark, I think, could be a really cool opportunity to make some models that are only for Kill Team, that don't really have any direct carryover into 40k, kind of like what they're doing with the Imperial Navy. So what I would love to see here is some kind of monstrous team like the Zoats or the Rakghoul against Inquisitors. Inquisitors over the years have a lot of really cool models, so they could keep those and just give them Kill Team rules, but then make some specialized models for Kill Team. So not only can Inquisitors have a really wide variety of anything from different weapons to power armor to different pieces of equipment, but I think they're one of the most popular teams. Like, from every time I've heard someone ask, like, what would you want added in Kill Team? Or the few polls I've seen of what would be your favorite Kill Team to added, they're basically always top of the list. I've seen some homebrew stuff for what Inquisitors could be. Do that with some Kill Team specific models, and you will have an absolutely amazing Kill Team. And on the other side of this, I think if they made new Rakghoul models, that would be amazing. Rakghoul are just so cool. I made an entire homebrew video where I made a set of rules for them, like if we would get the models, what could they be? And just as far as looks, they're probably my favorite Xenos in all of 40k, and Xenos are my favorite category of things in 40k, so that's saying a lot. So not a lot of people know about them, but basically what they are, they're multi-limb marauders that will fly around and just raid ships of people. So they'll take weapons like guns or chain swords or different things like that and draft it onto their body. Think kind of like what the orc knobs do, where they'll draft like the kill saws and stuff onto their arm. They'll do that with weapons as well. A lot of their weapons are either ballistic or radiation based. They don't do a lot of like plasma and energy. So think things like chain guns or things like radiation weapons are mostly what they'll use. So they use a lot of radiation in their technology. A lot of people think that's how their ships actually work. And they have Techno Shaman, which they're the ones that will basically draft all the implants and the bionics onto the Rakghoul. At some point, they may be as much machine as they are actual living thing. And these Techno Shamans are actually psychers, so they can do some cool stuff. They can flay reality, which is where they just distort reality to a person, so they have no idea what's going on and they just go insane. And the other more specialized thing is they don't have understanding of how technology works, but the Techno Shamans can interact with it, and they can completely corrupt a machine spirit, so they can completely shut down technology and equipment just by tapping into their psyker powers. I don't know if these psyker powers come from the warp or how they work exactly. There's not a lot of lore behind the Rakghoul, because I think they were in 1 or 2 RPGs ever. I don't think they've ever had minis made, as far as I know. So they're pretty obscure. I just think they're awesome, and I'm weirdly fascinated with them. I think if you have something really new and different, like a monstrous team, like Rakghoul or Zoats, and you put the Inquisitors against them, I think that will probably be the most popular Warzone Games Workshop has ever made for Kill Team. So I really hope they do something like that. It would change things up so much. So the next teams I want to talk about aren't teams that would necessarily need models reprinted. They could just re-release the rules, but I think they should remake the models. And they are the Starstriders against the Gellerpost Infected. So they've already made rules for them before. They've been in Kill Team in the last edition. They already have the designs for the minis. They would just be perfect for Kill Team. Partly because they already were a Kill Team. A lot of the homebrew community has already made rules for them. It would be super easy to carry over. I think this would be an easy win for Games Workshop. So I don't know enough about the miniature manufacturing process to honestly know what goes into taking a model you're not currently producing that you've produced before and remaking it. I know it sounds easy, there's probably a lot more to it than I think there is, but I think it would have to be a lot easier than designing a new model from the ground up. Granted, if people already have those miniatures, they might not want to rebuy it, so there might not be much demand there. So as far as like the supply chain side of it, I don't know how that would play out. But I think it's a team a lot of people want. A lot of people don't want to pay the eBay prices for it, because I've seen them go for pretty expensive. I haven't looked at it recently. So I think just re-releasing the rules would let people who already have the miniatures play it. I think it would be popular enough a decent number of people would buy it. And even if they don't sell as many, it's already one of those things, they already have a design. Like I said, I think it would be a cheaper and easier process. Just do a small print run, let people buy in, and give us the rules for those teams. I don't have a lot else to say about that. We already have their rules. We kind of already know what the teams would look like. We already have the model shown. Just transfer that to new Kill Team, and you'd be good to go. And the final matchup would be Grey Knights against Chaos Demons. So these are both compendium teams that need an update. And this would be an awesome way to do both of those teams at once. So the story here would be pretty obvious. We know that Chaos will basically show up on a Spacehulk and start to spread. So you could have a Spacehulk that has a bunch of Chaos Demons on it. It's going towards an important Imperial planet. And if it crashes there, you don't only have the impact damage, but then the Chaos Demons will go out of that wreckage and basically destroy the planet. So the Grey Knights in secret, not wanting people to know this could happen, are going there to stop the demons, potentially change the course of the Spacehulk, whatever they need to do to make sure that doesn't happen. The way I think they can make Grey Knights really interesting here is by not focusing as much on the specialized models. Like if it is a Warzone release, it will be like the Phobos set, where you have all of the new minis that can do special things, or at least an upgrade sprue for the older Grey Knights. But I think you could add in specializations that would affect what their Psyker powers are. Kind of like how in the Chaos Legionary team, how you could choose a Chaos Dot and it would give you different abilities and a different buff. Here, each Grey Knight could choose a specialization, and it would give you a different tree of Psyker powers to choose from. So right now, every Grey Knight basically has the same Psyker powers. Here, you could pick and choose to have different abilities on different minis. So you not only have the different models from that upgrade sprue, but you also have the different Psyker powers. So you have different levels you can customize your team. That plus whatever equipment you choose. You would have a lot of different loadouts you could run on one team just by basically them producing an upgrade sprue for it. I think Grey Knights are kind of one of the more interesting teams anyways, at least out of the compendium. So I don't think it would take much to make them an awesome team. I don't think they're too bad in the compendium right now, even against a lot of the newer teams. So I think this would really just help keep them modern. And on the demon side of this, I've made a video about this before, but I think the solution to demons isn't just by tweaking what they have right now, but I think that each Chaos God should basically have their own kill team. So you have one for Nurgle, one for Slaanesh, just each one has its own rule set. This way, what you can do is have a full list of strategic and tactical ploys, equipment, and model selection for each one. You're not trying to basically cram 4 different kill teams into one rule set, where you basically just did a fourth of 4 different kill teams. Like for Nurgle, you won't just have Plague Bears. You could also have some of the smaller HQ units. You could also have the Nurglings, which are awesome. I love those little guys. And like I said, you could have all the different ploys and the equipment that would really work with that team. So if you want to see that video where I talk about what models they should bring from 40k to put into each Chaos God's individual kill team, I'll have that linked here at the end of the video, and thank you for watching.